The Galactic Council Chamber floated in deep space above Nebula Prime, glowing with cold blue light and endless holograms. It was the place where thousands of alien species once came together to decide the fate of weaker worlds. Today, all attention was on one planet, Earth. A small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. A world the Council called primitive. A world with no known interstellar empire, no large fleet, and no proven advanced space weapons. Around the circular chamber, different alien leaders spoke with confidence. They still use fossil fuels, one said with a laugh. They fight wars with metal shells and burning fuel, another added. A third voice, deep and sharp, came from the Zoroth Empire representative. Such a species should not be allowed independent status in the galaxy. It is embarrassing. The council members agreed. Earth was strange. Humans were unpredictable. But most importantly, they were not respected. At the center of the chamber, the Grand Speaker raised his hand. The room slowly became silent. Earth has ignored 3 formal requests to join the Galactic Order, he said. They continue to refuse guidance. This behavior cannot continue. A wave of agreement moved through the chamber. Then the youngest council member, a scientist from the Viral system, leaned forward. Maybe we should not destroy them, she said carefully. Maybe we should observe them more. Humans show unusual survival behavior. A loud laugh spread across the chamber. Survival behavior? One elder mocked. They barely left their own moon. What survival do they know in the real galaxy? The Grand Speaker nodded slowly. Then we will correct their misunderstanding. A decision was made in minutes. Not war, not invasion. Humiliation. The Council would broadcast Earth's weakness across all known star systems. Every civilization would watch. Earth would be shown as a warning example, a species that refused evolution. At that same moment, far away in a quiet part of space, Earth's control stations detected something unusual. A signal. It was not incoming. It was outgoing. It came from Earth itself, from a deep underground facility that had not been active for decades. Inside the facility, machines older than modern governments began to wake up. Lights flickered. Systems that had been offline for a long time started running checks. A hidden human officer looked at the screen. His face was calm, but his eyes were serious. "Protocol Sigma is active," he said softly. Another officer beside him asked, "Is it finally happening?" The first officer did not answer immediately. He only watched the data flowing across the screen. Then he said, "The Council has made contact." In orbit above Earth, satellites picked up strange energy waves spreading outward into deep space. It was not a weapon signal. It was something else. A structured pattern. A countdown system, but no one outside Earth understood it. Not yet. Back in the Galactic Council Chamber, the Grand Speaker gave the final order. Prepare the broadcast. Every system will receive it. Let Earth see what happens when a species refuses guidance. The chamber filled with excitement. Some laughed. Some recorded the moment. Some simply waited to enjoy the humiliation of a smaller world. On thousands of planets, screens turned on. Across space stations, alien citizens gathered. Even military fleets paused to watch. The broadcast began. A holographic image of Earth appeared in every system. The blue planet rotated slowly, calm, silent, unaware. Then a message appeared from the Council. "Humanity of Earth, you are a young and unapproved civilization. Your refusal to join the Galactic Order shows ignorance. You will now witness your place in the universe." Laughter spread across alien audiences. But something unexpected happened. Earth did not respond. No message, no signal, no reaction, just silence. For exactly 12 seconds, nothing happened. Then every screen in the galaxy went black. Not flickering, not breaking, just complete darkness. Entire fleets stopped moving. Alien leaders stood up in shock. What just happened? Someone shouted. A technician screamed, "We lost the signal network." But then, Just as suddenly, the screens returned. And Earth was there, but it was not what they expected. A single human sat in a dark room, no decorations, no flags. Just a plain chair and a desk. The human looked directly into the camera, no fear. No anger, only calm silence. Then he spoke one sentence. "You should not have opened that broadcast." And then he smiled. The transmission ended. Every system across the galaxy went silent again. But this time, it was not because of technical failure. It was because something had just started. And no one in the Galactic Council yet understood what they had awakened. The Galactic Council chamber did not sleep. After the strange silence from Earth's first reaction, the atmosphere in Nebula Prime had changed slightly. Not fear yet, but curiosity mixed with irritation. The Council leaders did not like confusion. They liked control, predictions, and clear superiority. The Grand Speaker stood again in the center of the glowing chamber. His voice was firm. "Earth has responded with silence and a single sentence," he said. "This is either ignorance or arrogance." A few leaders nodded. Others laughed again, trying to remove the small discomfort growing inside them. The Zorath representative leaned forward. "Then let us end their arrogance." The idea spread quickly. Not destruction, not war. Something worse for pride, humiliation. The Council would show the entire galaxy what Earth truly was. A weak, isolated, backward world pretending to be independent. A full galactic broadcast would be prepared. Every system, every colony, every station would see it leave. There would be no hiding, no filtering, no escape. The Grand Speaker approved it. "Prepare the humiliation protocol," he ordered. "Let all civilizations witness the truth of humanity." On dozens of planets, massive communication arrays activated. In deep space stations, engineers aligned quantum transmitters. Even ancient listening posts woke up after centuries of silence. The entire galaxy was about to watch Earth be exposed. Back on Earth, deep inside hidden military command centers, alarms did not ring. Instead, quiet confirmations appeared on secure screens. A young human officer looked at the data and spoke softly. "They are preparing a full broadcast." An older officer standing beside him did not react with surprise. He only exhaled slowly. "So it begins," he said. Another voice came from the control room. "Do we respond?" The older officer shook his head. "No, not yet." There was no panic in the room, no confusion, only preparation. Like a storm had been expected for a very long time. Far below the surface, massive underground systems were activating. Not weapons in the usual sense. No visible missiles, no glowing reactors, no loud machinery. Just silent systems waking up one by one. Names appeared on ancient displays. Orbital Shield Grid, Online Deep Space Response Network, Online Black Archive. Access granted. The young officer watched it all and whispered, "It remembers us." The older officer replied, "It never forgot us." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council began the broadcast. Across the galaxy, lights dimmed as trillions of beings focused on their screens. Civilizations that had never seen Earth before were now about to judge it. A hologram of the Council symbol appeared first, bright and powerful. Then Earth appeared, small, blue, fragile-looking. A voice from the Council began the announcement. "Behold humanity of Earth," it said loudly. "A species that refuses unity. A civilization that rejects guidance. A world that believes itself equal to the galaxy." Images of human cities appeared. Skyscrapers, vehicles, oceans, deserts. Alien laughter echoed in many systems. "They still live like that?" One alien said. "Primitive structures," another added. The broadcast continued. "We offered them peace," the voice said. "We offered them knowledge. They refused. Now they will be shown what isolation means." At that exact moment, something strange happened. Earth's image on the broadcast flickered for half a second. Just a glitch. But it repeated. Again and again. Council technicians tried to fix it. "Stabilize the feed," one shouted. "We are not doing this," another replied in panic. Across multiple systems, the same glitch appeared simultaneously. That was impossible. The Grand Speaker frowned. "What is happening?" A technician answered nervously. "Sir, Earth is interfering with the broadcast layer." The chamber went quiet. "That is not possible," the Zorith leader said immediately. "They do not have that level of technology." But the feed continued to destabilize. Then suddenly, Earth's image returned perfectly stable. Too stable, almost artificial. The Council broadcast continued, but now something felt wrong. The voice from Earth's side of the transmission appeared again. It was not part of the Council message. It was not scheduled. A human voice spoke softly. "You are being watched too." Confusion spread instantly. "What did it say?" someone asked. "That wasn't in the script," another replied. The Grand Speaker leaned forward. "Cut that signal." Technicians worked fast. "We cannot disconnect it." The chamber began to tense, and then the human voice spoke again. "Every system you use to see us, we see you through it." Silence fell. On Earth, deep underground, a hidden command center showed hundreds of live feeds. Alien homeworlds, alien fleets, alien communication lines. Everything the Council thought was secure was now mirrored. One young human officer whispered, "They opened the door themselves. And now they think they are the ones in control." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the first sign of fear finally appeared. A system monitor flashed red. Then another. Then another. The humiliation broadcast was no longer about Earth. It was becoming something else. Something the Council did not yet have a name for. And far away, Earth remained silent again, waiting for the next mistake. The Galactic Council chamber had never felt this quiet during a live broadcast. Thousands of alien leaders were still staring at the holographic feed of Earth, but now the confidence in the room was fading. The humiliation broadcast had not gone as planned. Instead of showing weakness, Earth had shown something far more disturbing. Control. Not loud control. Silent control. The Grand Speaker stood still for a moment longer than usual. His advisors were speaking behind him, but he did not answer immediately. For the first time in a long time, the Council did not feel like the most powerful voice in the galaxy. Then the Earth feed changed again. It stabilized. No glitches, no delays. Just perfect clarity. A single human appeared on the screen once more. But this time, it was not the same man from before. This human looked older, calm in a different way. Not relaxed, but experienced. The kind of calm that comes from seeing many things others cannot imagine. He was sitting in a plain room, just like before, but now there were small details visible in the background. Screens, maps, moving star charts. Lines connecting systems across deep space. The Council did not recognize most of them, but they looked military. The Grand Speaker narrowed his eyes. "Who is this?" he asked. A technician quickly checked. "Unknown, sir." "The identity signal is not in any database." A Zorith officer scoffed. "Another human trick. They are trying to confuse us." But no one laughed this time. The human on the screen looked directly forward, as if he could see every viewer individually. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, and low. "You came into our systems without understanding them." A pause. "You used your own tools to reach us." Another pause. "And now you think you are the ones in control." Across the galaxy, alien commanders shifted in their seats. Something about his tone was wrong. Not threatening, not angry. Just certain. The human leaned slightly forward. "We did not respond earlier because responses are for equals," he said. The chamber reacted instantly. Murmurs spread. "Equals?" One alien whispered. The human continued. "You are not ready for that classification yet." The Grand Speaker's expression tightened. "Cut this transmission," he ordered. Technicians tried again, but nothing responded. Not their commands, not their overrides. Not even their emergency shutdown protocols. The broadcast remained locked. The human continued speaking. "You built your systems to look outward," he said. "But you forgot to check if anything was already inside them." At that moment, multiple council monitors flickered. A map of the galaxy appeared behind him. Entire hidden routes, secret fleets, and classified systems were visible. The council chamber erupted. "That is impossible." A fleet commander shouted. "Our deepest networks are sealed." Another yelled. A technician screamed. "He's accessing Level 9 archives." The Grand Speaker turned sharply. "What is Level 9? Silence followed. Even the technicians hesitated. One finally spoke quietly. "It does not exist in public records." The human on screen tilted his head slightly, as if listening to them through the silence. Then he said, "You call it Level 9. We call it Forgotten History." A pause. "And it is still active." The council leader stood up now. The human's voice remained steady. "We did not build our systems to be seen," he said. "We built them so that if someone ever reached us, we would already be waiting." Back on Earth, deep underground, massive structures shifted. Old systems that had not been touched for decades were now fully online. Entire defense networks that orbited planets in hidden paths were waking up, but nothing fired. Nothing attacked, not yet. The human on the screen looked slightly away for a second, as if reading something invisible. Then he returned his gaze. "You think this is a broadcast," he said softly. A pause. "It is not." The council froze. The human continued. "This is a permission check." Confusion spread instantly. "A what?" A council scientist whispered. The human answered without hesitation. "You opened a channel into our space. We allowed it. You sent signals into our systems. We tracked them." The room grew colder. "And now," he said, "we are deciding what comes next." A heavy silence followed. Even the council fleets outside the chamber were no longer joking or confident. Reports were flooding in. Systems were behaving strangely. Navigation was shifting. Communication routes were bending. The galaxy itself felt unstable. The Grand Speaker finally spoke loudly. "This is a bluff. Humanity does not have this level of capability." The human looked directly at him through the screen. And then he smiled again. Not friendly, not cruel, just certain. The broadcast ended for half a second, then returned. But now every council system showed something new. A single word appeared across all screens. Connected. And somewhere deep in the Galactic Council chamber, for the first time in its entire history, the emergency alarms finally began to sound. The moment the word "connected" appeared across every Galactic Council screen, the entire changed. At first, no one understood what it meant. Some believed it was a glitch. Others thought it was part of the human psychological strategy. But that laughter did not last long, because the galaxy started breaking in small, quiet ways. It began with a single fleet. A standard patrol group near the Mars border region, consisting of 12 advanced Council warships, was running routine surveillance. They had full shields, full communication, and multiple backup systems. Nothing in that sector was supposed to be able to threaten them. Then, in less than 1 second, they disappeared. No explosion, no debris, no distress signal, just gone. At first, the Council Command Center did not even notice. Ships sometimes lost signal temporarily in deep space. It was normal. But 30 seconds later, another fleet vanished. Then another. And then 3 outposts across different star systems went dark at the same time. That is when silence inside the Galactic Council chamber turned into panic. A technician shouted, "We lost contact with Sector 14 patrol." Another voice immediately followed, "Sector 9 is offline." A third voice, louder and shaking, said, "No, it's not offline. It's erased." The Grand Speaker turned sharply. "Explain." But no one could explain. On the main holographic display, glowing points representing Council fleets began to blink out one by one. Like stars being turned off by an unseen hand, A senior admiral stepped forward. "We are under attack," he said firmly. "By who?" Someone asked immediately. The admiral hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Back on Earth, deep inside hidden command layers, the atmosphere was still controlled. There was no chaos, no shouting. Just quiet coordination. The young human officer watched the data streams carefully. "One more confirmed disappearance," he said. An older officer standing beside him nodded slightly. "They are reacting faster than expected." The young officer asked, "Are we engaging them?" The older officer shook his head. "Not yet." Then he added, "We are only removing what entered without permission." Above Earth, in low orbit, something invisible moved. It was not a ship. It was not a fleet. It was something in between. A system of layered detection and response fields that did not exist in any known alien database. It did not travel like ships. It did not fire like weapons. It simply reached. Wherever the Council fleets had entered Earth's extended space boundary, they were now being marked. Not destroyed instantly, not attacked violently, just removed from alignment, like they never belonged there in the first place. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, panic was growing fast. "We are losing entire sectors," a fleet commander shouted. "This is impossible," another yelled. "We have planetary defense grids in those regions." A scientist screamed. "Those grids are not responding at all." The Grand Speaker raised his voice. "Activate emergency countermeasures." Technicians rushed to comply, but every countermeasure failed. Firewalls collapsed. Encryption keys invalidated themselves. Defense systems refused command input. It was as if the galaxy-wide infrastructure had suddenly stopped recognizing its own creators. Then the worst report came in. A young communications officer, pale and shaking, spoke slowly. "Sir, Earth is not attacking our ships." The room froze slightly. He continued, "They are deleting access paths." The admiral snapped. "That is the same thing." "No," the officer said quietly. "It is not destruction. It is removal of permission." That word hit the chamber harder than any explosion. Permission. The Grand Speaker looked at the central hologram again. More fleets vanished. But now something else was visible. Lines. Thin glowing threads connecting Council systems to unknown nodes. Every system that disappeared was connected to those lines. And all of them pointed in one direction, Earth, but not directly, deeper, beyond Earth, into something hidden behind it. A Zorith officer stepped back. "They built a network we cannot even map," a senior strategist added. "No, this is not a network." He paused. "This is containment." Back on Earth, a warning alert appeared. External intrusion reduced by 41%. The older officer nodded. "Yes, and they are doing it the hard way." Suddenly, the Galactic Council broadcast flickered again. The human face returned for a moment. But this time, the expression was different. Not calm. Not neutral. Focused. The human spoke only one line. "You entered without checking the depth." Then the feed cut again. And immediately after that, another entire Council fleet disappeared near the outer rim. The chamber erupted into chaos. "This is war," someone shouted. "No," the strategist said quietly, staring at the empty space on the map. "This is correction." And somewhere in the silence between stars, the Galactic Council finally understood the first terrifying truth. They had not invaded Earth. They had activated something that was already watching them. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer confident. The earlier pride, the laughter, the arrogance, it had all disappeared. What remained was a growing sense of confusion, mixed with something far more dangerous, uncertainty. Across the massive holographic map of the galaxy, empty gaps were spreading. Entire fleets were no longer responding. Outposts that had existed for centuries were suddenly marked as unreachable. But the strangest part was not their disappearance. It was the silence. No debris, no energy bursts, no enemy signatures. Just absence. The Grand Speaker stood still for a long time, watching the map. "This is not a normal military operation," he said slowly. A fleet commander stepped forward. "Then what is it, sir?" The Grand Speaker hesitated. That hesitation was new. Before he could answer, a signal came from a deep Council Research Division stationed near the Orion border. A scientist appeared on the chamber display, his face pale and tense. "Sir," he said quickly, "we found something in the interference pattern." "Explain," the Grand Speaker ordered. The scientist took a shaky breath. "These disappearances, they are not random. They are following a structure, a very old structure." The chamber grew quiet again. "What structure?" someone asked. The scientist looked down at his data. "It matches pre-Council era encryption architecture, but modified, expanded, evolved." A pause, and the origin point is not alien. Another pause. "It is human." A wave of shock moved through the chamber. "That is impossible," a Zoroth officer said immediately. "Humans have no such capability." But the scientist shook his head. "We thought that too, but the deeper we trace it, the more we realize something disturbing." The Grand Speaker leaned forward. "Say it." The scientist hesitated again, then he said it. "Earth is not their origin of power, it is their visible surface." Silence fell. Back on Earth, deep beneath the oceans, something stirred again. Not machines in the usual sense, not weapons, but systems that felt more like memory. Old command cores, hidden for generations, were now fully active. Layers of Earth's crust held silent facilities that no satellite had ever detected. Some were built under mountains, some beneath the seafloor, some even in places that did not appear on modern maps, and all of them were now awake. Inside one of the deepest command centers, the young human officer stared at a new report. "Council access attempts reduced to 23%, he said. The older officer nodded. "They are reaching deeper now." The young officer asked, "Should we allow it?" The older officer looked at him for a moment. Then he said, "We already did." Above Earth, the Galactic Council fleets that remained were trying to regroup. Defensive formations were being rebuilt. Emergency protocols were being activated. But every attempt felt delayed, as if the galaxy itself was reacting slower than normal. A strategist shouted, "They are not using standard weapons. We cannot predict their movements." Another officer responded, "Then how are they doing this?" No one answered, because the answer was becoming clearer, but too terrifying to accept. The Council had always believed Earth was isolated, but isolation was not absence, it was concealment. And concealment meant preparation. Suddenly, a new transmission appeared on every Council system, not from Earth's surface, from somewhere deeper. A layered network signal, structured and precise. The human voice returned again, but this time it sounded different. Not like a warning, not like a threat, like a fact being stated. "You are not the first to find us," the voice said. The chamber went still. "You are just the first to stay connected long enough to be noticed," a fleet commander whispered. "First." The human voice continued. "We have had visitors before you, many." A pause. Most left peacefully. Another pause. Some did not. The Galactic Council officers exchanged uneasy looks. The Grand Speaker finally spoke. "This is deception. Humans are bluffing to intimidate us." But even as he said it, his voice lacked certainty. The human voice responded instantly. "Your records are incomplete." And then something appeared on the main display. A list. Not names, not ships, but events. Ancient, unrecorded encounters. Lost civilizations, missing exploration fleets. Entire star regions marked as silent zones, long before the Galactic Council ever existed. The strategist stepped back. These predate us." A scientist added, "Some of these signatures are older than our civilization." The Grand Speaker stared at the list. For the first time, his voice was quiet. "Who are they?" he asked. The answer came immediately. "Not from Earth. but from every connected system at once. A synchronized response, like something vast speaking through all channels. We are what remains when curiosity survives contact. The council chamber fell into complete silence. Back on Earth, the older officer finally closed his eyes for a moment. Then he said softly, "They are close now." The young officer asked, "Do we reveal the full perimeter?" The older officer shook his head. "No," he paused. "Let them discover it themselves." And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Galactic Council finally realized the hidden truth they had never considered. Earth was not the beginning of humanity's story. It was only the part they were allowed to see. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer a place of authority. It had become a place of reaction. Every few seconds, new alarms echoed through the massive structure. Holographic maps flickered, updated, then lost data again. Entire fleets that were once proudly displayed as active were now marked with a single word: unknown. The Grand Speaker stood at the center of the chamber, but even his presence no longer calmed the room. Advisors spoke over each other. Fleet commanders argued. Scientists tried to explain systems they no longer understood. And through all of it, the same feeling kept growing. They were not in control anymore. A senior admiral slammed his fist on the control table. "We are the Galactic Council. No species should be able to disrupt our entire network like this." A technician responded quickly, almost shouting, "Sir, it is not disruption. It is restructuring." That word made everyone pause. Restructuring? The Grand Speaker repeated slowly. The technician nodded, fear in his voice. "Yes, sir. Our systems are not being destroyed. They are being reorganized. Permissions are being rewritten at a fundamental level." A heavy silence followed. Then a strategist stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "That means," he said carefully, "we are no longer operating on our own rules." The chamber erupted again. "That is impossible," someone shouted. "No external force can rewrite council-level authority." But even as they argued, another fleet vanished from the map. This time, it was not near Earth, it was far away, deep in an outer system. A place that had nothing to do with the current conflict. And yet it still disappeared. No attack, no signal. Just gone. A wave of panic moved through the room. "Report," the Grand Speaker ordered sharply. A communications officer ran forward. "Sir, the missing fleet was attempting to establish a safe retreat route. The route collapsed mid-calculation." "Collapsed?" the Grand Speaker repeated. The officer nodded quickly. "The coordinates themselves became invalid." The strategist spoke again, quieter this time. "They are not targeting ships. They are targeting reality paths." No one responded immediately, because that idea was too large to accept quickly. On Earth, deep underground, the control centers remained calm. The young human officer watched the data streams carefully. "Council retreat vectors are failing," he said. The older officer nodded. "They are trying to run in directions that no longer exist." The young officer looked up. "Are we closing them?" The older officer shook his head. "We are simply updating what is allowed to connect." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, panic had now turned into desperation. "We need full system reboot." A fleet commander shouted. "We cannot reboot without losing half the galaxy's coordination," another responded. "Then lose it," someone yelled. The Grand Speaker raised his voice. "Enough!" The chamber fell into a tense silence. He looked at the central holographic map again. The number of active council fleets had dropped significantly. Entire sectors were now marked as unstable. Then something new appeared. A faint signal signature, not disappearing, not breaking, but moving, slowly, methodically. A strategist pointed at it. "That pattern, it is not random." The Grand Speaker leaned closer. "Explain." The strategist hesitated, then said, "It is surrounding us." A ripple of fear moved through the chamber. "Surrounding us how?" someone asked. The strategist zoomed the map out, and everyone saw it. Council-controlled space was no longer a dominant shape across the galaxy. It was becoming an island, a shrinking island. And around it, unknown structured space was expanding. A scientist nodded slowly. Yes, we just never mapped them correctly. A fleet commander stepped back. This is impossible. Humans cannot control galactic-scale systems like this. The strategist looked at him. No, he said softly. Humans are not controlling the galaxy. A pause. The galaxy was already connected in ways we never understood. Another fleet disappeared. Then another. Panic finally broke into full chaos. We are being isolated. Someone shouted. No, the strategist corrected again, voice shaking now. We are being filtered, the Grand Speaker turned sharply. Filtered from what? No one answered immediately. Then the answer came. Not from inside the chamber, but from every system across the Council network at once. The human voice returned again, calm, unchanging. You are not being attacked, it said. A pause. You are being evaluated. The chamber froze. The voice continued. And your panic response is inefficient. Not because they were fixed, but because they were overridden. A technician screamed. Our emergency systems are being paused. Another shouted. By who? The Grand Speaker stared at the display. Earth, he said slowly, is not just responding anymore. A long silence. They are managing us. On Earth, the older officer finally spoke again. They are reaching the breaking point. The young officer asked, do we stabilize them? The older officer shook his head. No. He paused. If we stabilize them now, they will never understand what they walked into. Above them, the galaxy continued shifting. And in the Galactic Council chamber, fear was no longer just an emotion. It had become a system-wide condition. And Earth had not even launched a single attack yet. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer functioning as a place of decision. It had become a place of witnessing. Every system around them was unstable, not because of explosions or visible attacks, but because the structure of their control was slowly fading. Ships were not being destroyed. Fleets were not being hunted. Instead, access to them was being quietly removed, like doors locking one by one in a vast invisible building. The Grand Speaker stood in the center of the chamber, but now even his voice carried less weight. The council leaders were no longer arguing. They were watching, trying to understand what they had triggered. On the main holographic display, the map of the galaxy had changed again. Council territory was now clearly shrinking, not physically, but logically. Systems that once responded instantly were now delayed, then silent, then replaced with unfamiliar markers. A strategist spoke quietly, almost afraid of his own conclusion. This is not war, he said. No one responded. He continued anyway. This is final control establishment. A fleet commander shook his head. That is not possible. Sir, we are receiving a new transmission. The chamber went still. The Grand Speaker raised his hand slowly. Display it. The main screen flickered, but this time there was no Earth skyline. No human sitting in a room. Instead, there was darkness, not empty darkness. Structured darkness, like space itself had been organized into layers. Then a voice emerged, calm, clear, unchanged from before. The broadcast is no longer needed, the human voice said. A pause. You have already been connected long enough. The chamber did not move, no one interrupted. The voice continued. What you call panic, it said, is the system resisting correction. A fleet commander whispered. Correction. The voice answered instantly. Yes, another pause. You entered a structure you did not build. The holographic galaxy map shifted again. Entire council sectors dimmed slightly, not disappearing, but becoming inactive in layers. The Grand Speaker stepped forward. We demand explanation, he said loudly. His voice echoed across the chamber, but it felt smaller than before. The human voice responded. You do not demand from systems that are above your access level. That sentence caused a ripple of silence. The strategist lowered his head slightly. Above, access level. The voice continued. This is not punishment. A pause. This is alignment. At that moment, every remaining Council fleet received the same final transmission. Not a threat. Not a warning, a message. A simple structured line appearing across all systems. You have been reclassified. The chamber erupted instantly. What does that mean? Someone shouted. Reclassified as what? Another demanded. Cut the signal. The Grand Speaker ordered. But nothing responded. No system obeyed, not because it was destroyed, but because authority no longer applied in the same way. The human voice spoke again. You are now categorized as a developing contact zone. Silence followed. Then the strategist asked quietly, Developing contact zone? The voice replied, Yes, a pause. Observation status only. That word hit harder than any weapon, observation. The Grand Speaker stepped forward again. We are the Galactic Council, he declared loudly. A pause followed. Then the voice responded, You were. The chamber froze. The holographic map changed again. But this time, something new appeared at the edges of the galaxy. A boundary, not physical, not visible before, but now undeniable. The strategist stared at it. That was always there. The voice responded. The Grand Speaker's voice lowered. What are you? A long silence spread across every connected system in the galaxy. Then finally the answer came. We are the result of every civilization that thought they were alone. The chamber went completely silent. Even alarms stopped. Even systems paused. The voice continued. You are not the first council to reach this point. A pause, but you are the first to remain connected long enough to understand. The strategist whispered, First council? The voice replied, Yes. Then the galaxy map zoomed out further than ever before. And the council saw something they were never meant to fully understand. There were structures beyond their known space, not planets, not fleets, but patterns. Civilizations layered like history itself had been organized into networks. And Earth was only one small visible node in something far larger. The voice responded softly, You only joined it late. A long silence followed. Then the final message appeared across every system, every screen, every communication channel. Not spoken, not shouted. Just written, Do not panic. You are safe within observation. And just like that, the signal stabilized. The Council fleet stopped disappearing. The alarms stopped. The panic did not vanish instantly, but it softened like something heavy being lifted without permission. On Earth, deep underground, the older human officer finally closed the main system log. The young officer asked quietly, It's over? The older officer shook his head slightly. No, he said. He looked at the screen showing the stabilized galaxy. Now they are just aware. He paused. And awareness is always the first step. Above them, the Galactic Council no longer ruled the galaxy the same way. They were still there, still powerful, still vast, but now they were being watched. And for the first time in their history, they understood something terrifying. Earth had never been the target. It had always been the threshold.